Do you want to know how to be financially free before you turn 40? So young people, please listen up, because here's the deal. Retiring at 65 is broken, and you know I hate the word retiring. And waiting 4 decades from your 20s to your 60s to enjoy your life, to me, that is not a plan. To me, that sounds like an anxiety-ridden, stressful, overwhelming prison sentence. And when the game is that long, it never feels like you're winning, even if you are. And here's the truth. Most people won't tell you that you can become financially free before you turn 40, and not just if you're a tech bro or a crypto gambler or someone who hit the jackpot. I'm talking about normal, everyday people with normal jobs just like you. But here's the catch. You got to stop playing the game of the old rules. And in this video today, what I want to show you is how to walk you through the exact strategy that can get you from wherever you are right now to owning your time, to owning your choices, and to owning your financial future. And so here's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about, what does financial freedom really mean? Most people, in my opinion, just think financial freedom is, figuring out a way to generate a whole bunch of passive income, sipping margaritas on the beach, and you never go to work again. And that to me is just ridiculous. It's a fantasy. You'll be bored to tears. And in my opinion, here's the reality of what financial freedom actually means, because you want to get to the situation where work becomes optional. So why do you want work to become optional? If you're someone who currently relies on their paycheck to survive, which obviously most of us in our 20s and 30s are going to be, you want to get to a point where your paycheck is not a necessity. You've built up enough income producing assets that money by itself would be able to pay for your lifestyle. And what you don't want to be able to do is panic when your car breaks, or if your hours get cut at work or you got laid off. And of course, if you don't have to stay at a job you hate just because we need the insurance or that we need the benefits, that is my feeling of financial freedom. And again, I work, I'm 54 years old. I keep working. I love working. I want to help people buy and sell homes for the next 10 or 20 years, but I don't do it because I have to. What I do it is because I love to do it, and it allows me to only work with the people I want to work with. And it allows me then to be able to not be so reliant on that income. And it's funny how sometimes when in your mind, you're not worried about your income as much, you start to make more money. So financial freedom then allows you to say yes or no based upon what's best for you and not what you're forced into. And the key to all of it is this. It's not some dream that you can't get to. It's not reserved for people in their 60s, because if you put the right plan in place, you can get to whatever level of freedom you want to before you turn 40. And even if you're starting much later than 40, you can still do it. I have these conversations with my kids who are in their 20s all the time, figuring out, okay, what do you want your life to look like in the future? And again, if you don't know, because you're single now and you don't have a partner, whatever the case may be, those are conversations you can have later. But the key to all of this then is figuring out, what is your financial freedom number? So let's get real for a second. If you've heard me talk about these stories with my 2 moms, you can have dramatically different numbers. And again, don't cheat off your neighbor's paper. This is one of those where if somebody wants 10 grand a month and someone else wants 50 grand a month, you're playing different games and you might have to do different things. But the way you get there is this. Figure out what you think your overhead's going to be. So whether it's your rent or your mortgage payment, your food, your insurance, your like basic necessities, and you figure out what that number is going to be. So let's just make these numbers, easy to figure out. If we thought it was going to be $10,000 a month, you multiply that by the 12 months of the year, so it's 120 grand a year. And then from there, we've got to add on some inflation, on some taxes, some growth, whatever it might be. So let's say we needed our income to be 150 grand a month based upon our investment portfolio. You ask, how much would I need invested to get to that number? So again, in a more realistic, smaller example, to give you some exact numbers, let's say you needed $3,500 a month, which ends up being $42,000 a year. Add in our 25 or 30% buffer, and let's call it 50 grand a year. 50 grand a year at a 7% investment return, which is pretty average. So you would take 50,000 divided by 7. You're going to need roughly $715,000. Now, $715,000 invested sounds like a lot, until you go play on an investment calculator, and you'll see, especially if you start young enough, $715,000 could easily be done by your 40. Your numbers would be exponentially bigger if you started in your 20s. And the way I know this is this. We just did this with my daughter. We started at 23. We did the Roth IRA. She maxed it out for 23 and for 24 years old. I haven't looked at the number of what it would be when she's 40, but I do know what the number will be in her 60s, and it will be millions and millions of dollars. And again, if that's the only thing you did, you're going to be able to be financially free and live however you want to. But to get to that number, the money works harder than you do at that point, and you can still have a job, because at 40 years old, everyone I know who doesn't have a job just gets bored to tears. And again, $715,000 might seem like a big number if your net worth right now is negative 100 grand, but I'm telling you, you can make this happen. And I wouldn't worry about thinking that far in advance, because if you put the plan in place, getting there is not that difficult. It is simple and clear and completely doable. And we're going to show you how to do it right now. If you're someone who's thinking about getting your financial journey started, do me a favor. Click the link in the description below. It'll give you a list of our top 11 things that you must do to get started on your financial journey. So the financial freedom formula, we're going to break this down and actually how to get to that number. The first thing you've got to do is, of course, get rid of your debt, but we're assuming we're past that already, and we're going to maximize your savings rate. And that savings rate is the biggest predictor of what financial freedom is going to look like. Now, early on, especially if you're in your 20s and 30s, if you're living at home, if you found a way to keep your overhead super low because you got 4 roommates, if you in your 20s can figure out a way to save and invest, my minimum always is on that 50, 30, 20 budget and do that 20% off the top. But if you can find a way to do even more, the numbers will grow exponentially. So if you can, and I know a lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck and they're looking at me like I'm some sort of alien and this would never happen. But if you could find a way to save 30, 40, 50% of your income because you have a mass number of roommates or you're living at home, by all means, that's the number one predictor. And most people's savings rate is either zero or in a lot of people's cases, it's negative. So you don't have to do that forever, the 20, 30, 40% like I'm talking about. But if you do it early on and you get those money started when you're young, it's amazing. Again, if you go to that financial calculator and you start off with a balance rather than zero and you put in there, $10 or $20 or $30,000 as a starting point and then do your $7,000 a year in your Roth IRA, it's not something that I'm expecting you to try to save 30 or 40% for 40 years. But if you give yourself a kickstart at the beginning, it's huge. And again, that savings rate is really the biggest predictor of where you'll be financially in the long term. Okay, secondly, that goes along with this is as your income starts to increase, keep your lifestyle the same. Don't let it creep up. Don't let raises and all those things become extra car payments or extra things. If you can double your income and barely increase your lifestyle, it will be huge on trying to win this game and getting financially free by the time you're 40. Again, the next one is trying to find multiple streams of income. And I'm not a huge fan of this one. I always think just try to make as much as you can from your first one. And if you have to do some side jobs to figure out how am I going to make an extra $7,000 a year to get my Roth IRA funded, great. You can do some side jobs. There's a million ways to do it, whether it's babysitting, house sitting, dog walking. I get lots of side jobs in my real estate business for people, but turn that extra income into assets that create passive or scalable income that you can do for the long haul. The other one is the earlier and younger you start, set it up automatically, set it up aggressively. Time is your greatest asset. When you plan that calculator, the investment calculator, it's amazing how different it is when you start at 20 or 30 versus 50, the amount of money that you need, you need to get in there. So use low-cost index funds. Don't try to play the game. Just get in the S&P 500. Trying to buy individual stocks, again, is like gambling, like crypto. Automate it. Use those Roths. Use those 401ks. And again, don't try to time this whole situation. Just get in there and get started. Let dollar cost averaging compounding win for you. And I promise, if you start in your 20s, it will start to snowball. And the wealth that you'll build up by your 30s will be amazing. And honestly, for a lot of you, you will be financially free by the time you're 40. Now, a lot of that money you might not be able to get to because it's in long-term retirement accounts. But if you do it and you do it consistently, you'll be shocked how that wins. Now, while you're doing that, the other thing you want to do long-term, now that you've got this set up and our budget's rocking and rolling, is you want to own assets. You want to own the house you live in. Potentially you want to own rental property. Potentially you want to own other businesses, whether it's, laundromats or car washing business, or I don't care what it is. You just start to get into some other businesses that other people can run that you might make some more money with. And this will help you build wealth, but you can't just spend all this extra money that you earn. Like if you're buying things and they go down in value over the long term, like a car, you're going to lose. If you buy a rental property that in the short term might go down in value, but in the long term is going to gain value, you're going to win. Don't spend your money on clothes, spend your money on index funds. And if the money makes us buy back your time, it's an asset. So like for me in my real estate business, what I try to do all the time is put people in place so that I know what my hourly rate is. And so I shouldn't be doing busy work or chasing paper. I need to be calling and speaking and talking to my clients, helping them figure out how to buy and sell real estate. And the more I do that, the more income my team can generate and the less of the other stuff I have to do anyway. So when you're doing all these things, just be very careful not to buy liabilities. And if you're not sure what that is, send me a message. I'll tell you what it is. But usually, If you spend money on things that are not going to become more valuable, try to stay away from that as much as possible. And this is where you got to shift your mindset. This is where the biggest change happens, and you can't win this game with a broken mindset. So here's what has to change. Again, no flexing, no buying cars and clothes and watches and things that people need. You see this all the time on social media where people are trying to look rich rather than be rich. If you read the Millionaire Next Door book, that's 25 years old or even more now, most wealthy people, you would never even know they're wealthy because they're busy buying assets and delaying gratification. They're putting their freedom ahead of having fancy things. They're putting their peace of mind ahead of just trying to prove to other people that they're wealthy. And if you do some sacrificing early now, you're going to win later. So again, I don't know where this quote came from. There's one I'm going to talk to you about, but if you just stop trying to impress other people, nobody's watching your stuff like you're watching your stuff. And I wish I knew who said this quote, but it's like, if you live like no one else now, so you can live like no one else later, you're going to be in great shape. And it's not worth fitting in and trying to keep up with the Joneses. Here's what I'll tell you. I remember, it's probably 10 years ago now, when I got my first fancy car. It was a 4-year-old car that I bought, and it was a Mercedes. And a brand new was an ML350. A brand new for those at the time, I think, was about $80,000. And what people don't understand is, because I know how all this stuff works is, and in my business, if you buy a car over 6,000 pounds, you can write the whole thing off in 1 year. And so what happened was I bought a used one. It only had 17,000 miles on it. I paid 40 grand for it. But in reality, I really only paid 24 grand for it because, I was in the top tax bracket at that time, and I would have paid $16,000 that year to the government tax anyway. And since I used that $16,000 to use it towards the car, and I wrote the car off in 1 year, I really paid $24,000 for that car. And I've been driving it now for the last 10 years. So I haven't had a car payment in 10 years. But when I first got it, I was almost feeling like people are going to judge me differently. They're going to look at me differently. It was no different than, you guys probably see this watch in a lot of the videos. And when I first started wearing this watch, it's a Rolex. It's an old school. It's probably a 40, 45-year-old watch. People would ask me about it all the time. And sometimes people would make a smart ass comment about me trying to flex or show off fancy things. And in reality, this is my dad's watch that I inherited when he passed away 15 years ago. And I'd love for him to still be wearing it and not me. And so again, sometimes you can't always judge a book by its cover, or just because somebody has fancy things, how they got them, or smartly how they got them. So just think about those things when you're looking at these situations. And here's the bottom line. Financial freedom and getting to financial freedom early in life isn't luck. It's a formula. It's a skill. And now that we're showing you how this works, what is going to be your next move? What we don't want you doing is not paying attention, sleepwalking through life, going through debt, spending 110% of your income and living paycheck to paycheck, because you're never going to get ahead that way. We got to get you started now on what I'm calling your sprint towards financial freedom. So if you have questions, by all means, reach out to us. Hopefully this helps you mentally be able to focus on getting your mindset right so that you can make this work and you can get to whatever your number is to being financially free. And I promise, if you're committed to doing this, you can be financially free before you're 40. So let me know what you're going to start with. Let me know how you're going to get started. I'd love to hear from you. And like and follow the channel. There's lots of good information on here to help you in a lot more detail how to do these things.